Hey, everybody, welcome into the first episode of 2021 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you all had a great new year and are ready to get this brand new year kicked off on the right foot. We're going to do something a little bit different for our first episode of 2021. I figured since there were 5 Fridays in the month of January, I would start off with something that has been requested by a lot of the people. I've been getting a lot of messages and suggestions to get this back started. So we're going to start with our Transcribe This, and we're going to get the new year kicked off on the right foot by assigning you a brand new transcription. As you all know, I think that transcribing is probably the most important aspect of your practice. And if we're not doing that, we're not really doing much of anything. We need to be constantly transcribing. So we're looking to get you pointed in the right direction, give you some solos, and we'll be doing this once a month as we did some time ago before we kind of stopped doing that. And to tell you the truth, I'm not even sure why I stopped doing that. I guess it was just a little bit of laziness on my part. But that's not going to happen in 2021. I'm going to give you a brand new solo every single month. And what we've been doing, what a lot of the members have been doing, is posting their transcriptions and themselves playing along with the recording in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group. So if you want to jump over and post your transcription for the month, I would absolutely love to see the work that you've done. And I know that provides a lot of inspiration for other people in the group to sit down and do their transcription as well. So keep in mind that you can post that stuff over there, and we highly encourage it. Okay, so what are we going to do for the first solo of 2021? Well, I want to give you one of my absolute favorite recordings from 1946 from one of my favorite musicians in the jazz world, Lester Young. And we're going to talk a little bit about sort of what I want you to focus on with this. But this is called the No Eyes Blues from 1946, Lester Young. And it's kind of an interesting recording. There isn't really a melody that you could write down per se. Like you could not put your finger on the melody, write it out and say, this is the melody for No Eyes Blues. This is a little bit more in the old style of blues playing where the melody is kind of an improvisation. The improvisation and the melody kind of meld into this indistinguishable thing. And the thing that I want you to think about on this solo is the way that it's played. Rather than what is played, I want you to think about the way he pulls it off and the effect that gives to the listener. Now, I think that Lester Young is so great at this. So here we sit in 2021. We know that there is so much advanced harmonic language to learn. And I think sometimes what happens is we occupy too much of our time with what to play rather than how to play it effectively. And I hope that makes sense. So you can be playing the most advanced content in the world, but if you're not playing it with feeling and musicality, and if you're not playing it convincingly, nobody's going to want to listen to you. You could be playing all the upper structure harmony in the world, the hippest bebop licks. But if you're not playing it in a way where people feel like you're saying something to them, again, just nobody's going to want to tune into your playing. And I think that's what we can learn from Lester Young. So here's the thing is that while the melodic and harmonic content of Lester Young's playing on this blues is just remarkable, and we can learn a lot by what he's actually doing over the chords, I think the thing to pay attention to more is the way that he's playing it. He's one of the most convincing musicians, one of the most recognizable voices, and one of the most musical jazz musicians who has ever lived. And you've got to keep in mind, this was 1946, so this was really even before kind of the bebop revolution, I guess you could call it, in jazz. So this is very much an older style of playing. But the amazing thing about it is that I think it's just as relevant in 2021 as it was in 1946. And there's something to be said for that, music with some staying power, something that still kind of blows your mind, all those years later, 75 years later. Now, when you're transcribing this, and this is actually very common when you reach back to some really old recordings, there are some things you have to deal with. So I want to sort of point those out and get you ready to deal with them. One of the things is that the recording is slightly out of tune. And that's something that was really common with, stuff before the 1950s and even some stuff after it. But this is an obstacle that we have to learn how to get over. Now, if you play a wind instrument, it's very easy to just kind of, take your mouthpiece or your tuning slide and pull it in or out until you can match the pitch with the recording. But if you play an instrument like piano or guitar, it's a little bit tougher, but I want you to learn to sort of get over that and still be able to transcribe it and figure out what he's playing and how he's playing it. But that is going to be a challenge that you're going to be presented with. Now, the second thing is, if you don't play saxophone, it's going to be kind of hard to match exactly with what Lester is doing, because he's doing a lot of things that are kind of specific to the saxophone. He's doing a lot of saxophonistic things. But that also doesn't mean that you can't transcribe it if you play another one of those instruments. It's just that you're going to have to figure out how to come as close to what Lester is doing, but using the different techniques on your instrument to come as close to that as possible. So he's doing a lot of stuff with pitch. He's doing a lot of bending, a lot of vibrato, things like that. So again, if you don't play the saxophone, it's going to be kind of tough to match up with it perfectly, exactly. But I want you to try to overcome those difficulties and see what you can do to just get as close to Lester as possible. And you may even discover some things about your instrument, some extended techniques, some ways of putting a little bit more feeling into the music that you can use after this. All right. So those are just a couple of warnings as you go into this. But yeah, basically this is just an F blues and the playing is magnificent. I am going to include a link to a YouTube video that you can use to get started on this. You can look it up on Spotify, whatever service you have to listen to music. Maybe you even own a CD with this on it. Remember those. But don't be afraid to slow it down. Don't be afraid to manipulate anything that you have to in order to really get started on this. And I think starting 2021 off, focusing on the musicality and the feeling behind this content is going to maybe start this year off thinking about music in a bit of a different way. Thinking about how you're delivering the content that you're playing instead of solely focusing on the content of what you're playing. You got to think about both. You can't be one-sided about that. So let me know if you have any questions about this solo. And most of all, make sure that you are posting updates in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group. And let us know how you're doing with it. And if you're having trouble, another great place to go is in that community Facebook group to ask questions of your fellow students there. Everybody there is extremely open-minded, extremely helpful. It's a very encouraging environment for jazz students, and I've got to thank everybody over there for making it that way. It's just an awesome place. So, hope you enjoyed this first episode. Let's get back into these transcription episodes, and we're going to come at you with 4 regular episodes this month. I just wanted to take the opportunity, since Friday is the first of the year, to get you kicked off with this brand new transcription. And I'm always open to suggestions for transcriptions. So if you want to shoot me a message on Facebook or email me 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com, maybe with some solos that you got a lot out of, that you think some of these fellow listeners might get something out of. All ears for suggestions, and we may even feature your suggestion next month. All right, everybody. Hope everybody had a fantastic New Year's Eve and is having a great New Year's Day. And we will see you next Friday with a regular episode. Have a good one. Stay safe and healthy out there, everyone. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.